Tonight, we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Today is Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Keep this program free. We rely on those who make contributions, buy merch from our store, and send super chats or become members of our YouTube channel. There are links in the description below if you are interested. And remember to super chat or send a super sticker. Just click the $ next to your name in the comment box in the live chat room. For those who are already YouTube channel members or thinking of becoming one, remember that you get priority over the questions tonight. You also get behind the scenes, extended footage, bloopers, and access to members only programs like the Citizen Paranormal Report. And if you haven't seen the latest episode, I went to NORAD, I filmed it, and I almost got arrested by military police. So it's a good video. All you have to do is click the big blue button that says join next to the subscribe button. And while you were there, hit the bell and be notified when all members of TESSA release new content. Also, if you're watching this on the replay, thank you for tuning in. When you could, add your comments and opinions below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We're going to try something new tonight. Instead of 2 hours, this program is going to run for 90 minutes. So the halfway mark is going to be around 8:45. It's going to be followed by the after chat still. We just want to spend more time doing the things we like to do and spread the love a little bit easier. And thanks to the experiencers who suggested this. So we're going to try it out for you, and we're here for you, and hopefully this is good. So let's get started. Our guest for season 5, episode 4 is Hince. Anne has developed the ability to sense inside her body and release physical tension stored in her connective tissue, solely using her mind's focus. She has x-rays to show the material changes resulting from this inner work, which we have, and we'll show those tonight, including changing the alignment of her eye sockets, the straightening of her neck, the centering of her lower jaw, and the growth of her tooth roots. She has also grown 1/2 inch at the age of 55. Anne wants us to know that we all have this incredible power, and according to her, it takes going further with practice that we're already doing. As many as you may know, changing what is in our inside changes what we see on the outside. So if Anne's belief that we can change our personal and collective worlds, then it must be possible. So Anne has a YouTube channel and where she shares her journey, explains the connection between the physical and the spiritual, and posts videos on how to change the pressing issues of our time. In addition, her book, A Pathway to Insight, details her journey and breaks down the steps she took to obtain what she calls insight, or the ability to see within the body. You can find Anne at her website, www.annehince.com, so ANNHINCE.com, or you can purchase her book, A Pathway to Insight, on Amazon, and you can also find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. All right, Anne, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. All right, so we're going to start with our icebreaker question. I'm going to play my little jingle here. All right, so the icebreaker question is for both of us tonight is brought to us by our support group, Experiencers Anonymous. If you want to learn more about them, head over to experiencersupport.org/experiencer-anonymous. All right, so our icebreaker is, what is your favorite mantra and why?
Okay, I'm not sure I really have a mantra, but if it's a question that I ask myself, it would be, how am I feeling right now? That is something that is something that leads people down the path.
So like a self-check.
Yeah. That's my journey. It's like, how am I feeling right now?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm learning these mantra things. I don't really have a favorite because I'm really still trying to work these ones out. But I do enjoy like the hand position type mantras where you're focusing, in certain hand positions or whatnot while you're meditating. I do kind of enjoy that because I like to fidget, so it kind of helps me concentrate on that. So, all right, well, thank you, Sil, for that icebreaker question. And then my first question, as I ask all my guests, is why are you the way that you are? And what I mean by that, of course, is take me back as far as you want to go to explain how this person in this bio got here today.
Okay, it's quite a long story, but we'll start at the beginning. So a lot of us have trauma in childhood. In some ways, I think the more trauma we have, the more our willingness to explore the other areas of life, like spirituality. So I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin. So the first 6 weeks of my life, I had kind of physical therapy. My mother had to release that tension holding my foot in place. And she did that. And then she handed me over for adoption at 6 weeks old. Now, I was handed over for adoption into a family that had just suffered a trauma because they had a 2-year-old boy that they had adopted, and then they adopted another little girl. And the birth mother of that little girl changed her mind. So they had to hand that little girl back to her mother, and I was the replacement into the family for that loss. Jesus. So, yeah, I think that probably caused some things,
Well, yeah, no one needs to be second choice, let alone, put up for adoption. So, yeah. right out of the gate. Okay, keep going.
Right. Then at 6 months, when they realized my birth mother was not going to change her mind, we started traveling around the world because that's what my dad did. So we moved to Barbados first, then to Sierra Leone in West Africa. And while we were there, we had a house fire. And I was the one who woke up in the morning and saw the flames coming in through the wall of my bedroom. So that was a pretty good sized trauma. And then we moved to Hong Kong. And when we were in Hong Kong, I was sent to boarding school in England. And I was sent to a boys' boarding school because it was my brother's boarding school. So for the first year, I was the only girl boarder. There were some day girls that went home at night, but I was teased mercilessly by those boys, those 9 to 13-year-old boys. So that was a good sized trauma. And then in my teenage years, both my parents became alcoholics. So my mum would drink in the afternoon, my dad would drink in the morning. So kind of the whole day was given over to managing what was happening in my house. And then when I was 19, I woke up one morning and found my mother dead on the bathroom floor. So that was a good sized trauma, kind of the culmination of everything. But I think you probably know, we kind of get programmed in those first 7 years of life into how to deal with those kind of things that happen. And my programming was just suppress everything and continue on like nothing had happened. So that's what I did with all those traumas. I just kept it hidden inside. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 21, I moved out to the States. I had been in England and I was a software engineer. I got married. I had kids. We moved out more to the countryside and to the hills. And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s and I had a business altercation with a couple of other mothers at my boys' school. They told me I'd done something wrong. And I didn't think I had, but I was this scared person on the inside with all this trauma. I was very emotional. I was very reactionary. And my mind started to spin out of control, over and over what they'd said and what I'd said, what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently. And it was like 3 days before I could kind of gather myself again. And I realized at that point, okay, I had to do something different. Something had to change. And I didn't know what to do at that point. But it was in that time frame I went to a doctor's appointment. He was a holistic physician. So he had more tools in his toolbox than most physicians do. And he was also a parent at my boys' school. So he knew that I was a stay-at-home mother, 2 healthy boys. I shouldn't have been too stressed, but he realized it was. And he asked me my stress level on a scale of 0 through 10. And I said it was an 8. And then he asked me why. And it was then that I realized, okay, I was still holding those tears from my mother's death just under the surface 2 decades later. And he happened to know this technique that is called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping, because we're tapping on different places in our body as we're talking something through. And so he tapped with me about my mother's death for about 15 minutes. I let those tears flow. And on my way home that day, I realized I could tell the story of her death in my mind now for the first time ever without the tears there. And that's when I realized we hold those emotions and those memories physically in our body, and that we can let them go. And that was huge. I didn't know that at that point. So that was the beginning of my journey.
It's interesting that you're sharing that too, because like, I mean, I try not to get into the personal stuff on this show, but I can relate to that transition right now in my life, because I'm learning, how to let go of past traumas as well, which, I'm not going to get into what those are, but, and your timing of explaining this to me is right on point to like how I've been this last week. So I really do appreciate you sharing that. And I'm happy to hear, what happens next.
Okay, cool. So I went home that day. I went online. I wanted to learn everything I could about this technique. So I did. The person who developed it, his name is Gary Craig, and he gave it away for free. So it was easy to go online and learn about it. But I was an engineer, and I wanted to know that it wasn't a fluke, right? I wanted to know that it really worked. So I wanted to try it out on something. And at the time, I had a 17-year-old cat at home. So he was starting to fail. He was old. His kidneys were starting to fail. And we were told we had to give him a daily saline shot, an injection. And I hated injections. The first time I gave him that shot, my hand was shaking so bad. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it every day. So I thought, okay, let me try out this technique. So I tapped about it. I tapped about every aspect of it, which is something you do with EFT. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting him with the injection. And I tapped about my memories from all the injections I had had as a child, because we traveled around the world. And the next day, when I gave him that shot, the needle just slid right in. All that fear that I had been holding the day before had just totally disappeared. So that's when I realized how powerful it was. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm going to start doing this. So what I did is I wrote down, well, actually, I started using it during the day to begin with. I started noticing when I was emotional, right? Because we sometimes get caught up in our emotions, right? We get angry but we can't. What we need to do is stand back and say, okay, I am getting angry now, right? Start noticing when we're getting emotional in any way. And once you can do that, you can do something about it, right? So that's when, so I would tap. If I was getting frustrated, I would tap on the frustration, and the tapping allows that energy to release from the nervous system. So things were changing so fast, but I wanted it to go faster. So I wrote down every emotional memory I could think of from my childhood, right? All those traumas, all those beliefs I'd taken on, all those phrases my parents would say to me, things like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, or shame on you, right? Those statements live inside of us and they're triggers. So I wrote everything down and I tapped through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night, until whatever it was I was working on was just a story. It was just words. It didn't trigger me anymore. So as the weeks went by, I realized my mind was becoming quieter. I was becoming less reactionary. And at one point, I remember opening my kitchen door and thinking, okay, it feels like I'm living in a different reality, because my mind that used to be so busy talking all the time, it was quiet. And I had never experienced that before. So it felt totally different. And that's when I actually realized that the voices in my head had been the phrases that my parents had said to me, or mostly my dad. had said, and I would criticize myself, I would judge myself, judge other people, but those criticisms were my dad's, and they had been living in my head, and I couldn't realize that. I couldn't notice it until they were gone, and then I could look back and say, oh yeah, that's what was happening.
Negative talk is very, very aggressive. It's funny, I was actually talking about that too, because sometimes, I'm very bad for the negative talk myself, to be honest. And, so, I mean, what else do you know about me? Keep going.
So what I realized is I had to catch those negative voices, right? When those negative thoughts would come into my mind, I'd have to notice them and I would tap on them, right? Because I realized it's just energy that's stuck in the body. Wants to release, we have to show it a way to do that. And so that, for me, the tapping was a really powerful tool. But I also realized as I was going through this process, my awareness was expanding and my subconscious mind was opening up. So the way the awareness was expanding was, to begin with, when I started this journey, if someone asked me how I was feeling, I would always say, I'm fine, because I didn't want to feel how I was feeling. I had so much resistance. But as I did more and more tapping, I became aware of how I felt. I became aware of my emotions, and then I would tap on those. And then as I kept going, I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions, right? Because every emotion, we're just naming a set of physical sensations, right? Because we can see someone, someone in the distance, if we can see someone and notice that they're angry or they're depressed, we're seeing how they're holding their bodies, where they're holding tension. And we can become aware of that inside of ourselves, right? So if I'm feeling frustration, where am I feeling that? I couldn't notice that to begin with. I had to do this work. And eventually I came to the place where I can notice those physical sensations of the emotions. And at that point, I didn't need to use EFT as much. I could actually just feel the physical sensations. And if I put my focused awareness on that tension inside, I could feel it release. So this is kind of the second step on my journey. What I talk about is feeling your feelings. I actually had to work on it. It sounds easy to say, okay, just feel your feelings. People say that, just feel your feelings. What does that mean? So I had to work out what it meant. And I realized that I actually had to hold my breath when I was feeling an emotion, to notice, to focus on those physical sensations. So I would hold my breath and I would talk to those sensations. Something like, okay, I can feel this frustration sitting in my solar plexus, right? I can feel you there. I just want to feel you. I don't want to change you in any way. I just want to feel you, allow you to be felt. At some point I'd have to take a deep breath, let it out, and then I'd feel that frustration again. And I noticed that it had shifted. It had released a little bit. So I would do the same thing. I'd think the thought that had the frustration, feel the frustration, hold my breath, just focus on it, and it would shift. And I would do it again and again with the same thought that had the frustration, until the thought no longer had any frustration. It had just disappeared. So then I started doing that every day, right? Instead of tapping, I'd just notice when I'm feeling something, I would feel it, allow it to be felt. It's just energy that's stuck in the body, and it would release. So that was kind of the second step on my journey.
I was just trying to think of how the tapping actually works, or what that's actually doing, because I haven't heard of that before, but it makes sense because I was experimenting it too. So like, it's almost like a fidget spinner in the sense of you're focusing in the present while your mind is wandering. So you're almost tethering in between times, and it kind of helps. That's my understanding of what you described. Not doing it, but I kind of feel like that is similar. So am I on the right track, or
the tapping with the EFT does a couple of things. We're tapping on the meridian systems of the body, the ends of meridian systems. So that's, kind of like acupuncture type thing. And that is releasing the energy that is stored in the nervous system. around the thought. So whatever you bring up into your body, the tapping helps release it. So that's one part of it. But the words we use help us focus on that feeling inside, right? So we're honing our focus as we do it. So that's why my focus got better and better as time went on, because then I was able to focus on the sensations.
So does where you tap matter per thought, or yeah,
there's a series of 9 or 10 points that we tap on, and I have a YouTube video that shows exactly. EFT's been around for at least 2 decades now. That's had many studies done on it that proves that it's doing things, it's working. So yes, it's the same points over and over again. You just go around in a circle through the points again and again until the energy has released.
Okay.
And one of the things I like about it, because that engineering background, is that your body actually provides feedback. So you know that you're releasing. A lot of people will yawn as they release energy. Some people will burp or sigh. Some people will get really tired, but there will be feedback from your body. If crying is always a release of resistance, right? But if you're saying something that starts out with a lot of emotion in it, as you keep tapping, your voice will just become calm as the energy gets released. And then at some point, you can tell the story to someone. There's no energy left in it, right? You're just reading, like you're reading from a book. At that point, the energy's gone and it's no longer a trigger.
That's powerful and safe to do. It's like, it's organic because you're not consuming anything. You're not, you're just focusing on yourself. So
right, you've just got to be willing to do it, right? That's the key thing. You've got to be willing to do it, and then you've got to start noticing.
And you got to catch it. That's the thing, is because there's a microsecond in between the, I'm speaking from experience too. There's like when something triggers you, to actually reacting to it and then catching your reaction and then dealing with it. So you kind of almost want that window between noticing it and reacting to it to be long enough that you decide to do a tapping mechanism, a protocol or something like that too. Right. And that's a challenge, just to have that space of time, even if it's a fraction of a second between thinking it and reacting over it. And
right. But you can always come back to it afterwards, right? Because you can bring the memory, you can bring the thoughts or whatever you said, you can bring it back into your mind and tap through it, because the emotions will still be there. They won't be quite as intense, but you can bring them back and release it that way.
Okay. Awesome.
So the EFT was the first step. And then once the awareness is expanded, then become aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So I don't know if your audience might be interested or not, but it was during this phase, I would actually lay on the sofa and I would bring collective traumas to mind. So I'd kind of done my childhood, right, with the EFT. So then I would think about something like 9/11, or I was in the Loma Prieta earthquake, something like that we all had our own personal experience of those collective traumas. So I would feel everything that came up in my body and just allow it to be felt, and it would dissipate. And it was during that process that I experienced Kundalini energy. Some people have heard of it, some people haven't. Felt like electrical currents, up through my body, and I could control where it went, which was kind of fun, to be honest. And that went on for several weeks, maybe a few months. And at the end of that, at one point when I was doing this release work, I realized I could put my awareness inside my body after the tension had released. I could keep it inside. I mean, it sounds such a weird thing to say. I'd never heard of it before. Didn't know what I was doing. It was kind of fun in some ways. I was just playing. So then I thought, okay, well, I've done it once. Can I do it again? And I could. And then I started to play, okay, what can I do now? So I realized I could move my awareness around inside my body. I could find a place that had tension. I could feel the difference between tension and no tension. So then I would focus on the tension, just feel it, just allow it. So I'm doing the same thing as what I was doing with EFT, which was focusing more on a memory or an emotion. Then feeling the feelings was more focusing on the physical sensations. And now I'm focusing inside the body, directly inside, but I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just focusing on it, allowing it to be without trying to change it. and it would release. And it was kind of fun. So I just kept playing, and I would move around my body. I would just focus on where tension was, feel it, allow it to release, and then do it again and again, or move to somewhere else. And eventually, it took many, many months, but eventually I could get inside my head. And that was huge for me, because there was so much pain and tension inside my head. Unbelievable amount of pain and tension inside my head, which I think had been there since I was born with my foot up against my shin. Yeah. I think it had all been there. I had scoliosis my whole life, so my whole body was kind of torqued. But the key point is I had no awareness of it. Right? 50 years had gone by and had no awareness of how much tension I was holding inside my head. But at this point, I've got my technique, right? So I would focus on it. And there was so much pain in my left cheek to begin with, I could only focus for like a second. But over time, I was able to do it more and more. And it got to the place I could actually feel something release, which was a little scary at the time because I had no idea what it was. It felt like old fabric ripping. And it sounded like old fabric ripping because I'm in my head at this point, right? I'm near my ears. And I did some research at that point and realized it's an adhesion in the connective tissue. It's just, I'd released enough tension that it released by itself. So at that point, I just kept going. And over time, I could actually feel my skull bones relax. I didn't know, I thought things were shifting. I didn't really know how much things were shifting until I had those x-rays taken in 2021 and could then see the difference between 8 years prior and see exactly what had shifted.
You mentioned pain earlier, and I was thinking of it too. Like, could you use this technique for something as simple as I literally just stubbed my toe and I'm in pain in this moment right now?
Absolutely, yes, because it's all connected, right? The pain that I feel inside my cheek is connected to my past. It's connected to stories. It's connected to emotions. Right. So, yes, absolutely.
Just to elaborate more on that too, on that thought is like, does pain actually exist, or is it just our brains indicating that there's a potential sense of danger if we continue to do something that way? Like, is this a sign, a neurological sign that there's maybe something wrong? And is it all brain activity?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I do think it's calling for our attention.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what this work is doing.
Is that pain we're experiencing the brain telling us that this needs attention, or is that actually localized pain in the area that's affected?
I do think it's in the area that's affected.
This is beyond the tinfoil hat. This is why we go beyond. We dive as deep as we can. It's okay. All right. Yeah. So, all right, continue.
Okay, so that's where I am right now. I'm can put my awareness inside my head and inside pretty much anywhere inside my body, and just focus on it intensely. I use my hands these days. It almost magnifies the focus inside my body, but I'm just releasing more and more tension, and my neck will crack many times. One of the things I love to tell people is, we don't know when we release. I didn't know when I started out this journey, right, how much depth there is to life that I was not aware of, right? But now my neck, it's like I'm at the chiropractor 20 times a day. My neck will release and make cracks many, many times a day as I'm releasing tension. But that allows me to move my neck into many, many different perspectives that I was not able to see before. Right, so I can actually put myself in the shoes of many, many other different types of people because I've released the resistance to them. And when we start out, if we have little awareness, we can often only see from our own point of view. But as we do this work, we become able to see from many, many different points of views, many different perspectives. And it's physical as well as mental, right? My neck will move many, many different ways, and I can see from many, many different perspectives. So that is totally connected.
I'm learning through exercises that I've been doing that this physical pain sometimes is an indication that there's been mental pain for a very long time. And this physical pain that you notice may seem new, but in reality, it's that warning sign. So would you share that idea, or is that something that might be scientifically proven? That might be exactly how it works. I don't know. I'm learning this stuff too.
Okay, I believe it's totally how it is. If we ignore emotional pain or trauma for long enough, it gets stored in the body. It's a wound inside of the body. And at some point it gets so big, right, that our attention is called to it. Now, as we release it, if we release it through these kind of methods, we can focus on the pain itself and just work with the pain itself. And as that happens, like as I'm releasing, excuse me, as I'm releasing tension in the connective tissue, a memory will often pop up, which I believe is when that tension was stored. It's normally a place memory, so I don't exactly know what happened. I just know where it happened. Right. So I know that's where the memory was stored. So they're absolutely connected. There's no doubt in my mind they're connected, and you can get to them from different ways, right? You can get to the pain through the memory, through the trauma, or through the pain itself.
Okay. Fascinating.
So you'd start with words. So if I was, 20 years ago, if I had a pain and I was using EFT, I would tap about everything about that pain, right? When that pain started, I would tell myself the story of when the pain started, of how it feels, exactly how it feels, what it stops me doing. Everything about the pain, I would tap about that, which will release a lot of the tension inside. And I would keep working on that. Right. Nowadays, I would put my focus on the pain itself and just feel it. But that's just because where I am now. But one of the things we haven't yet talked about that I should mention is what I realized when I could put my awareness inside my body is I'm not my body. I'm clearly not my body. I can't be my body if I can be inside and look from one place to another inside my body, right? I can't be that body. I have to be inhabiting my body.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was a big thing, because I've heard about that for a long time. We're not our body. We're just having this experience inside a body. Well, yeah, I mean, totally, right? Because I'm looking inside, looking from somewhere in my head to somewhere else inside my body. So I'm just here for the journey.
And that makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot like avatars or just souls, and the more derogative one, these are just meat suits. There's many different versions of that belief, and when you get into the cultural differences and stuff, the bodies are really are different as well, physically and whatnot, but mentally we're all the same. It's all energy. It's all consciousness. And there's some stuff. I'm kind of going down a different rabbit hole here, but that's where I went.
Yeah.
That's where my mind went. Okay. Where do you want to continue from there?
Well, we can go into some questions if you've got questions.
Yeah, no, totally too. So there is a question in the chat, and it's kind of similar to one that I have as well. And that's basically, I know you've come to learn how to do this when someone had taught you how to do it. But being aware of it, like, is this something we are able to do from birth, or do we need to be shown how to do it? Or like, what is any chance of naturally doing this without any conditioning, I guess?
I possibly, I think it's unlikely, because we just we start suppressing everything in childhood, right? All that programming from society, right? We have to do this, that, or the other, or we're bad, or we start suppressing things. And if we had a perfect childhood where we were allowed to be our true selves the whole time, I imagine we could do this straight off.
Who has a perfect childhood? Is there anyone,
right.
Like it's, and no one knows how to raise, and, you just, and you work with the cards you got.
Right. And as I said, I think sometimes you have to have the negative experiences in order to do this, to want to do this work and to go kind of the opposite direction.
And I like this approach. It's definitely something easy to recommend from the experiencer point of view. So a little background too is I try to help those who are affected by UFO and paranormal phenomenon that are feeling negative, about these experiences. Like, this is something that I've never heard of, so I'm going to look more into that too. And it would be a very healthy recommendation for those who are experiencing traumas from possible abductions phenomenon. And the nice thing about that, and one of the challenges we have in this paranormal circuit, is that there is no health care for mental health services for people that are affected by paranormal or extraterrestrial phenomenon. So, and even if there was, that health care is expensive. So these techniques are something that we can actually do ourselves, and it's affordable because we're working on ourselves. Right?
Absolutely. It's free. Yes.
Yeah.
And if I experience something like that, I think we probably don't have people we can tell those stories to. Maybe there's one or two people that you'd be comfortable telling it to. But if not, I would tap through the whole story. Imagine I was telling someone else the story, and I would go into every possible detail that I could and tell the story, say it out loud or just say it in your mind and tap through it. But then what you do is you start again. You start at the story again, the beginning of the story, say it again. And as you do, you're kind of opening up that wound in the subconscious mind. You're opening up those memories, and more details will come to mind about the story. Part of it's that you haven't recalled again, right? So you recall it as well as you could, and you would tell the story again. And then you get to the end, and then you tell it again. And you'd keep telling it again and again until the emotion had subsided.
Okay. A couple questions come to mind too, and there's one in the chat that I want to bring up as well. Is, I know you learned from someone else to do this so you've applied it and you're using it and it's working. But is it something that you could teach, or do we need to go to this holistic doctor in order to learn it?
Oh no, there are thousands of videos online. I don't recommend a lot of them because a lot of them use scripts. They use other people's words. It's way more powerful to use your own words. So I do have a YouTube video, I think it's like 10 minutes or something, that explains how to do it.
Okay.
And how your body provides feedback. So I'd recommend that. And I've got links to Gary Craig's original videos about how to do it as well. So I'd recommend those. So absolutely, you can learn how to do it in just a few minutes. Perfect.
I'm just going to share your YouTube channel in the comments right now since I have it up. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's right there.
So Lisa Savoy has, what does she say? She had mentioned, and she's a lifelong experiencer. So she says, I'm halfway. Oh, sorry, wrong comment. She had said, I'm a lifelong experiencer and I still have terrible fear of the dark. So is it possible with her having this experience to use this technique to help with that? Absolutely. Yeah, it's great for fears. And in fact, if you wanted to use scripts for EFT, I bet there are scripts out there for EFT and fear of the dark. So that's what you do a search on. But you could just tap on, I'm so afraid of the dark, right? You're finding your truth. You're tapping on your truth and you're accepting it rather than suppressing it. So you tap about, I'm so afraid of the dark. There's probably reasons why you're afraid of the dark, right? Memories why you're afraid of the dark, and you would tap on those two. You tap through those memories until there is no longer any emotion left in them. So how do you determine where to tap? Same points every time. My video shows them, side of the hand, top of the head, crown points. Do you go through a circuit, or do you just decide? Same points each time. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then you go back to the beginning and you do the same ones, just again and again. Okay. So it's not like, a specific spot for a specific thought? No, just use the same points, just learn them and, just get used to them and just keep doing them. Okay. They kind of span the whole body. Those specific points kind of span the whole body.
Well, for someone who has ADHD like myself, okay, and fidgets a lot, I have a hard time meditating because my mind wanders, and I hear that you're supposed to let it wander, but it doesn't silence. So it's just I might as well stay awake for it, you know. But what I like about that is because I do have a fidget spinner, like I do fidget, you know. But the reason why I use it is because it helps me focus on the thought and calm down. So this technique, I think, you know, I'll be watching that video for sure, and I think that's something that I should be using personally, to be honest.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, and one of the things I've come to understand about ADD and ADHD is we will often move when a thought is starting to arise and we don't want to think it or we don't want to feel it. We will just move. That's just the way, one of the ways we avoid thinking it or feeling it. So if you can learn to tap instead of jumping up and doing something or thinking about something else, then I think that will help too.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our sponsors and professional partners. I just got to find my video here. Pardon me. Chris, I'm going to have to show you how to do this so it's a little bit faster. Okay, so if you're listening to the audio only replay, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. This includes the after chat where I'm going to share some Tessa updates and talk about current investigations that I'm working on. So tonight I'm actually going to talk about the audio clips that I posted to the YouTube channel about the recent UFO balloon takedown problem that we've had. But these are actual audio recordings from the pilots that had witness on that. So we're going to break that down and talk about updates on that. And so stick around for that. And remember, you're listening to Beyond the TinFoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we'll be back in about 4.5 minutes. Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrial, dogmen, or any other paracryptid? Head over to experienceyoursupport.org and click the purple button on the top right corner and click Submit a Report. The more reports we get, the more we will understand these phenomena and how it affects our people. But the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. If it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do, and for that, we thank you. All right. So this new format, 45 minutes, then break, that went pretty fast. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's working. It's good. Okay, where do you? So we left on a high note. How do you want to?
I just want to encourage anyone who is only listening to this that they really should check out the YouTube, because the video and the graphics, the openings, just amazing.
Thank you for saying that. And that's what we're trying to do. For those who are on the audio replay, you really are missing out. You're also missing out on the live chat. So you get to, ask these questions and stuff like that. Thank you for that. So let me see here, because I think we pretty well covered most of my questions. But I want to get into, okay. So here's my question here. Follow me on this one. So I don't know if you explained this yet, but did you explain the part about how you were able to expand your bone structure?
Through release of tension, right? So there's almost a force that pulls us upright, and we have this burden that we're carrying. So as you release the burden, it kind of frees up the bones to straighten up. So it's not like I've actually, I haven't actually grown in the sense of that. I've just released what was holding me back from my natural height.
Okay, because the question we were going to ask is because we all want to grow an extra inch here and there, and particularly my guy in the studio wants to grow a full foot. So we were kind of hoping we would learn how we could do that, because that's But anyway, so let's talk more about that experience. I have the X-ray. If you want, I can bring that on the screen and just. Okay. You want to talk about that? Okay, so let's talk about this. And what are we looking at?
So that's the eye sockets and the jaw, right? The eye sockets, the X-ray on the left is 2000. What year was it? 2013. And the eye sockets are not aligned, right? They're at an angle. And then 2 years ago, 2021, the eye sockets have aligned. The bones themselves had shifted. And I didn't even know that was possible, right? So all I had been doing was releasing tension, finding the place that called for my attention. So the place with the most pain, I would focus on it and release, focus on it, release, focus on it, release. And over time, those bones had shifted, mostly from the jaw, right? The cheek and the jaw. So see the jaw on that left X-ray, right? It's way off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And on the one, 2021, it's much more in the center. Again, I had no idea my jaw was off to the side before. I never looked at that x-ray from 2013. I never looked at it until I got the one in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know my jaw was way off to the side. But then I could see, look back and see the difference. And my neck was totally at an angle before. It's not fully straight yet, but you can see it's a lot straighter than it was. And one of the things I loved about the x-rays that, again, I didn't notice straight away, but I also have x-rays taken from the side. And the one from the side, I can see, and now some people aren't aware enough necessarily to see this, but I can see that the one from 2013, that is not a very confident posture, right? The head is not in a confident posture. Whereas the one from 2021, the head is in a much more confident posture. And for me, that was huge because I knew I wasn't very self-confident in the past, but the fact that I could change that physical posture by just doing this inner work myself, like on my own at home, that was huge for me.
So I appreciate these lines on it too, because my investigator brain goes, maybe you're just in a different placement because 8 years later you took you took this these different x-rays, but with these line placements, you can clearly, it makes it easier to actually show what's been changed.
Right. And they were taken with the same machine, and you can see that kind of white line through the top of the skull.
Yeah.
Right? And there were things put in my ear, so they make your head be in the same position, right? You're held in place for them to take the x-ray. So yes, they were totally taken with the same machinery. So, and I mean, look at the difference. See the line that goes across below my nose, above my teeth. I've got that bridge there. So there's that line. Yes, see that line there? See it on the other one? Look how less space there is there. That's actually what we're looking at there is the back of the skull. You're just seeing it through the whole skull. So that's the posture, that the way I'm holding my head has changed.
Okay, so 2013, like you mentioned that when did you started learning this? Around 30? I
started learning it before that. So I'd already done a lot of work with the EFT, but not so much the deep physical work. So that's just been the last few years, really.
Okay, so those few years that you transformed into this, what exactly were you focused on doing that may be the result of that?
It was everything we've been talking about.
Okay.
Letting go of emotions, letting go of the tension and the physical sensations, letting go of that tension deep inside the body and the connective tissue.
Interesting. Now that you've evolved, and things are getting better, is there still a need to do that? Do you still do that today?
Yeah, you get aware at a deeper and deeper level. So I still have some pain in my left cheek, but it's much more, it's been broken apart. It's like that wound has been opened up. Mm-hmm. And yes, I can see, I think you probably know some of this, but like the ancient Egyptians in the statues, they had perfect symmetry, right? They had perfect symmetry. I think that's what will be the end result. I think when we're not symmetrical, there are forces pulling us out of alignment. And so I'm still working on those. I'm still releasing tension in my neck. And I can see that my face is certainly not symmetrical. So I know I have work to do.
That's kind of, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because like I was also thinking of like the old Tibetan monks and whatnot, when like some of them can meditate and some of them have been preserved in their meditation state, and they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect in the way that they petrify or mummify or however they do that process. And the thought comes to mind, because I know that, with the monks, it's all about consciousness. It's all about meditation. It's all about all this empowering stuff. And they're absent of a lot of these things that create some conflict. So you might be onto something in terms of this symmetrical appearance that we see from the Egyptian sarcophagus, is because Well, maybe that's all they've been doing, and they knew that. Those are secrets. These are ancient secrets. Well, not really secrets. They're just. And maybe let's talk about that. Like this is. I wouldn't say pseudoscience isn't the right word for it, but it's like Eastern medicine kind of category of not widely accepted in the normal medical fields to be, prescribed and recommended. So, what are your thoughts around why that is and how we could get this, why isn't this like available to everybody?
Well, you can't make money from it. Well, most people wouldn't make a lot of money from it. I mean, there are EFT practitioners. If anyone wants to work with one, you can find one out there. But yeah, I mean, I believe this could help most people with most things. So at a deeper level than people know. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that this is possible. I didn't know this was possible. I don't know anyone else at this point who can go in and release tension in the connective tissue, feel inside, right? Like I can go inside my palate, release tension in my palate, in my tooth roots, in my nose, in the nasal cavity, underneath my eyes. I mean, so the awareness is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. The whole process is getting deeper inside.
Uh-huh. This, I totally lost my train of thought. Forgot where I was going with that. Sorry about that. No, I was just, I lost it.
You're talking about the medical industry, really.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that's actually it. So like it in general speaking, thank you for reminding me of that. Is just there is a lot from birth, even to at your life, like that was a very rough start from the get-go, and you have excelled in achieving past those challenges. And there's a lot of people that have challenges like that when they're born in many different stages of their life. So the fact that you're able to overcome that in general is empowering. But even for those who don't start off with those challenges, hypothetically speaking, as soon as they're brought into this world, there's a lot of rules and conditions and things that have to apply, and they're being molded at a young age with parents that might be never been parents before, and trying to figure it all out. And then you go into a school system that's regulated and all this other stuff, and then you graduate and maybe go to college and university because you're told you have to, and then try and find a job and all these other things, and then boom, your life is done. But you haven't learned how to process all these things because you've been doing everything your whole life based on what everyone else has told you to do. So, yeah, and because all the things that we did made money. So you're right on that, because this if we were told from the beginning that this is a beautiful creature and we need to focus on consciousness and live an entire life without a school system, we probably would have, a newborn baby Jesus. Who knows? But we're not allowed to do that. So in your opinion, do you think this is prevented not just because of money, but it's because maybe there's some underlining plan to not encourage us to be better than we are as a society?
I don't know that there's necessarily a plan. We've just all learned how to do this. It's just like society has moved over and over. We do what our parents did. They did what their parents did. We just get programmed. But I do believe this work is undoing that programming, right? And we can see that in society somewhat happening, right? Things that were hidden are being brought out to be seen. Mm-hmm. So I do think things are shifting. And I think this inner work will do that, because I'm releasing tension that is not conscious, right? I believe it's before those first few years where things went directly into the subconscious mind, because we're like a sponge at that point. We just soak it all up. But I think when we're releasing tension in the bones, I think we're releasing that programming from those very early years. So I do think things are shifting.
Yeah, I think so too. I think more of us are becoming more aware and more in tune, and trying to, like the next generation is going to be a little bit more spiritual. I'm hoping anyways.
I think the new generations are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old and 24-year-old, and they're so much more accepting than we were at that age.
Okay. All right. In one of the conversations we had and in the information I've read, it was mentioned that you have a different point of view on the law of attraction. So do you want to talk about what that is according to you and how you do it different?
Sure. Most of the things we hear out there are about thoughts, right? That we attract what we think. Mm-hmm. However, what I've experienced from this whole whatever story that I've been on is that we're a signal. The whole of us is a signal. It's not just our thoughts. That's actually a small part of it. What I think the biggest part of it is the tension that we hold inside from our past. Because once I became aware of that tension inside my head and I realized how much pain was there, but I had no awareness of it, right? It had been affecting me all my life, but I hadn't been aware of it. So that's what I believe the biggest part of our signal is. But it's also things like it's our size, our shape, our hair, our clothes, right? Because if we changed our hair, right? If I shaved off all my hair and I went out into society, I would experience different feedback from society than I do now, right? Because I would have changed my signal. So the way to change our future, I believe, is to change our base signal, which is the story, the history that's stored inside of us as tension. If we release that, then our signal has changed and we attract different things back into our future.
Okay. That's powerful. I like that. So, well, what are some of the challenges, I guess, we might get in the way of making these changes? Because like this is a tool to use and sometimes we get triggered and we forget to do it, or we don't remember to do that. Like what are some of the barriers that might, make this difficult to do, and how do you overcome them?
Well, one of the things that just came to mind when you were saying that is that if we change, then sometimes people around us don't like that, right? They don't want us to change. So we have to be willing to do that. We have to want to do it.
And I can relate to that too, because like over the last few years, I've gone through a lot of personal changes, and a lot of that has to do with me not letting certain things bother me or changing certain things a certain way in order to make, peace with myself and the life that I'm living. But it does affect the tribe that I was with. And then, then you have to then a new tribe comes, and then you kind of you also gravitate towards those groups of people. So I can relate to like my past and the crowds that I used to hang out with and the things that I used to do and the things that I used to, it makes sense on how all those things had happened. And then as soon as I started to expand and learn and change all these other things, I'm now hanging out with more people that are different than those people. But I'm realizing now that those are more of the right people, and that's where I need to be. And, so that's just life, though. This is
right. There's some subtlety to that, though, right? So we can transfer over to a new group, but we can also notice that we have resistance to those other people, right? And we can work on that ourselves, right? So
I won't go back to those groups, and things that, sounds worse than it is. I'm just talking about like I used to be in a band, okay? So playing music, that kind of stuff. But like you miss it, but then you're like, that didn't fill my cup. That might have filled my cup then temporarily, and then now you're kind of doing more things. So and you say like trauma hinders us, but trauma also changes us and it redirects us. Sometimes trauma needs to happen in order for people to change their ways. Right.
And that's what I was saying. I had to go through that altercation with those two other mothers in order to realize, okay, something has to change. Yeah.
And it was you that had to change. And that was not so much yourself, but how you were thinking, how you were feeling, and how you were responding to that. And a lot of us don't think about reflecting on ourselves because that just seems to be so hard to do. And yet it's so simple. so simple. So the mind is a very powerful tool, but it's also a very, challenging and conflicting tool.
Right. And one of the other parts of that is that if we do the work ourselves, that our interactions with other people do change, right? So our significant other might change because we're attracting a different part of them. So, to begin with, we might think that we really don't want to be around them. But if we do the work about how we feel about what's happening with them, then we shift our signal and we attract different parts of them. It sounds so weird to say. That would have done to me 15, 20 years ago to hear that, and I wouldn't necessarily have believed it. But when people experience it, it's just amazing. It's so much fun when people experience that.
What about, now this is individual, right? We can change what we're doing on an individual, but how do you think this would apply to like groups doing the same thing with the shared focus? As an example, I'll bring back to the monks because it's the first thing that popped in my head. If they're all together, if one person meditating can use the proper tones and sounds to create that vibration, but then if you get a large group of them in the same room and they're vibrating and meditating on the same frequencies, they have the ability to levitate objects because it magnifies, because we're all on that shared focus. So using that concept, how would that apply if all of us got in the room and did the same thing to heal each other or the entire world? Like, could we magnify what we're doing, or is it like externally, or is it always internal?
Well, it's both, right? If it was a group of us who'd done a lot of this work already, and then we did it together, we would be at a higher frequency, right? And might be able to do more. But still having a group together does make a difference. I went and had an EEG done with a group of people who've been doing the tapping with me on Sunday. And we had our baseline, scans on the screen. And then we all did 3 minutes of tapping of EFT ourselves. And then we redid the EFTs, and our brain waves had all the amplitude of them had all gone way up. And then I held there was only two of us doing it at that point. So I held her hands, and the feedback from the people who were watching was like, oh, wow, because the energy of the brain waves had magnified off the screen. So absolutely, both of those things are true at the same time. It's individual and collective.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want. We want more of that. And a lot of my work, is understanding that the suppression, like there's a lot of act in the world to make us think negative and do negative things to prevent this thing from happening. So, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing, again, but yet so simple, yet so hard to do. So
and so hard to realize what we need to do it on, right? Because if from what you just said, I would tap about there's lots of people in the world who want to keep this hidden, who don't want us to do these things, right? Whatever the negative thoughts or emotions come up, we can tap on them, right? Because if you let go of that emotion, that tension around that thought, oh, well, maybe there's other people out there, right? You could just let it go. Maybe there's other people out there. It doesn't affect me, right? Doesn't matter. Then you just freed yourself up a little bit more inside. And then you're putting off a different signal and you're attracting different things to your future. So I believe tapping on any thought or emotion or event that happened is going to change your timeline in the future.
And that's a positive thing. So I would suggest everybody to try that. On the break, I ran down to refill my tea and spoke to my wife, who's also watching downstairs, and she's like, "We should try that." So we're gonna look into that. So on that point, we only have a few minutes left until we reach the end of the show. Let's talk about your book, The Pathway to Insight. This is the book cover here, and you also have it on Amazon, right? I'm going to put the link in the description here for you guys watching live. Tell me about this book and why people should get it.
Okay. It tells you in detail the steps that I went through that I believe anyone else can go through to attain insight. It's called a pathway to insight because there probably are other pathways, but I know this one provided me the ability to sense inside the body, which I believe is the third eye. I believe it's the inner eye. So I talk about that in there too. So that's in detail. My YouTube channel shares most of the information. So you don't need to get the book. The book just has more detailed information. So I just want people to do the work. I want people to realize how powerful they are on the inside, how much they can heal themselves. And let's change the world together.
So on your YouTube channel, which I have right now, that video that quickly shows how to do this NFT that maybe I might decide to watch at the end of the show here, where would I find it?
Okay, it's EFT.
EFT?
Yeah, you've got almost the spiritual conversations there. It's, I think it's, scroll down a bit.
Scroll down?
Yeah, steps into my body. It's probably in there.
Okay, well, let's find it. EFT
demo. There we go.
Right there. All right. So I'm going to take that link and put her in the comments below for you guys. You got it direct right there. And then the wife and I will take a look at that later. It's only 6 minutes and 34 seconds to change your life.
Yeah.
All right. So you got lots of things going on your YouTube channel too as well. So what else do you talk about?
Yeah, I'm doing a weekly, what I call a spiritual conversation. Anyone's welcome to come on, have a conversation. That's what I want. It's on a Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. The links are on my Facebook page. I do it on, I post it to YouTube. So and I try and share as much as I can because, as I said, I want this information out there.
Perfect. All right. There's your Facebook page there. Cool. And then you also have a website too, right?
Yep, and Hince.com, and you can see the x-rays there.
Okay. So we'll just take a look at that. So for those of you listening to the audio replay, we are actually physically looking at these things. So head over and you can get the links too. I'm not gonna read them out to you, make you work for it. Come over to the YouTube channel and see the video. So this is interesting. I like the colors. I just noticed like the theme is very similar to our background. I changed my colors this year too. So I'm really vibing these colors.
Good. They are kind of bright, but one of the things I realized is like I can feel into colors now. I never could in the past. And I feel a resistance to white. So I avoid white at all costs at this point.
Okay, we got a few minutes. Let's talk about that. So how do you feel? What does that feel like as a resistance? Like, can you elaborate more on?
Yeah, it's almost like a repulsion. It's like I don't want to see white. I will look away from it almost. Whereas blue, I wear blue all the time. Blue is just comfortable. It just feels so comfortable. So, that's what it is. I'm just picking up how I feel about certain colors. And I find it really interesting that white is supposedly the spiritual color because, as I said, it feels repulsive. There's like an energetic pushing away from white, which I a few years ago I didn't experience that, and I do now.
It's interesting it being white because normally people are like stay away from the dark or stay away, so
right, but white reflects light.
Yeah,
and I think that's what, in some regard, that's how I've picked that up.
Yeah, and I think white is like the absence of color, and black is like the combination of every color in the spectrum as well.
Yeah,
so it's so you feeling that way seems off, but that's because I've been conditioned to think that white is bad or good, pardon me.
Right, which are just thoughts and programming, right? Yeah. Whereas when you get to a deep level, you can just feel it. I mean, like I can feel sounds inside of my body now, mm-hmm. right? I could only hear them in my ears originally, right? But now I can feel them. Even your opening couple of minutes, you've got some pretty intense sounds in there. I can feel them right inside of me. It's really cool.
As long as it's cool, it's not frightening. The whole idea is to get everyone all pumped up and ready to go because it's, And so that's great. And I'm also thinking too, in terms of like technology these days, that there's dark modes now. And personally, I prefer to have the dark backgrounds because it feels better. And it could very well be because of what you've just described, because I'm currently looking at a white screen here for the things that I have to pay attention to. And since you mentioned it, I'm like, this white thing's got to go away.
But you're right. So you picked up on the feeling.
Yeah. I just didn't connect it and all this other stuff too. Okay. Well, then that's great. Let's end it on that high note. And is there anything, final thoughts that you want to share with the audience? Anything you got going on that you say the floor is yours. Let's close the show.
Just start noticing, right? Start noticing how you're reacting to anything. Just start noticing. That's the first step. And then you can go from there.
Perfect. Beautiful. All right, everybody, it's time to go. Unless you're interested in hearing some of the latest updates from the Experience Support Association, or if you want to pick my brain a bit about some of my ongoing investigations. So just stick around for the after chat. If you're listening to the audio only replay, your show ends here. So you'll have to head over to youtube.com, the Experience Support Association, to actually get the after chat. And if you guys want to follow my work, you can always find me on Facebook and Twitter. And so thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky and heed the world.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the ultra spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heed the world. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Chris, do you want to come in? You want to come in? No? Not yet? You can bring yourself in if you want. But anyways, hello, everybody. Welcome to the after chat. That was great. I can't realize, it's still 9:30. It's quite early, but, changing the time, I think that was good. I think that was great amount of time to get enough information in to keep that impactful. So thanks for the recommendations on that all around. And here we are. So let's say hello to everybody and see. Yeah, okay, Chris. Yeah, I'll bring you in. Don't worry, buddy. Let's say hello to everyone in the chat, and then I'll bring Chris in. So Lisa, hello, Lisa. Good to see ya. Thanks for being here. If you're still in the chat, say hello. Brownbeard, good to see ya. You missed the first part. Well, you can catch the replay, but thanks for tuning in when you can.
And what did you say? You said, it's a comment here. We are all open windows when young. As we age, we close off due to surroundings. So many kids has that imaginary friend or guider. Yeah, I had some imaginary friends. I think those were the only friends I had, to be honest. No. So thanks for sharing that, Lisa. I see you there again. UFO man, Tim, how you doing, pal? Good to see ya. If you're still here in the chat, say hello. Weltram Elf Afe, I say hello because you are a member. In regards to your comment there, you said this is absolutely non-interesting and super unamazing. Well, I appreciate your opinion. And if this show wasn't for you, then I'm sorry it wasn't for you. But, if you need to say it, say it. But you're a member, so thanks for being honest and being nice about it. All right. Brownbeard says self-reflection is hard. None of us want to see the bad in us. Yeah, and I don't like talking about my personal shit on here, but recently the guests have been like saying the things I need to hear, and then I get in that moment where it's like, like I'm just trying to be honest. So it's kind of good that it's bringing this side of me out too, because like it's hard sometimes just to be to show up and do these things sometimes. I do have my own stresses. I do have my own anxieties and I dip up and down in emotions and things like that, just like a normal human being. And it takes a lot to prep to be here for this time for you guys. And I'm super excited about it too. And I'm glad to have the support and things like that. And as I'm continuing to learn and grow and meeting new people, which is what I love about this podcast is, and especially not knowing the guests, is not knowing where it's going to go, and I can relate to that too, because I'm changing, I'm feeling differently, and then I'm sharing more too. So I'm healing as well. And we're all, we're all in this boat together, and I'm happy to actually feel a little bit different, and I guess be honest a little bit about myself too. So there's a lot of, I'm just going to end that. This is not a therapy session. All right. So moving on. Who else we got? So Lisa, I'm still here. Okay. So we don't have anyone in the chat asking comments. So I'm sorry, Chris, but not sorry. We got to bring you in because I need someone to talk to.
That's fine. I'm doing good.
This is your second time backstage. You're still new to the subject matter for the Experiential Support Association.
Yes. It's mind blowing.
Yeah. How was that for you? Mind blowing.
Oh, mind blowing. It was awesome. Like you were relating, I was relating.
Yeah.
To my personal experiences, to my tensions, and just wow.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is when I was prepping for this guest, I'm looking at the bio and I'm like, I don't know how I can make this paranormal, but I didn't have to, because you just connected through consciousness.
Right.
So it's quite interesting the way that the spirituality in that too, which I'm still exploring as well, as a nuts and bolts investigator who had his mind just blown when he learned about all these dimensions and different shapes of the earth and all these other things. So I'm still trying to figure out what's real. But yeah. Okay. So things I wanted to talk about, let me share my screen here, and Chris, you can hang out if you want.
Sure.
I did publish 3 new videos that actually have audio from the pilots of those who have reported unidentified flying objects. So this is kind of a recent discovery that has been discovered, and I'll give credit to journalist Daniel Otis, who brought this to my attention, because he was actually diligently listening to some of this audio that is available free. I will be adding that resource to the website soon. But since it's public domain, I decided to make videos so that way I can use it to link it to the timeline. So let me just give you an example here. So like, I think this one's a short one. So let's listen to this video here. So I'll give you the context for those who haven't heard this. But so on February 12, 2023, at approximately 0800 Zulu, several aircraft near Sherbrooke, Quebec, reported seeing 2 or 3 very strange lights in the sky high above the flight paths. Their reports appeared in Transport Canada's online aviation incident database on February 21. So for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I did post that posting on there to let you know that was done. And then Otis went one step further and actually was able to retrieve the audio file for the pilots making that report on that said day. Now, to get that information is a very short window because they only have that available to the public for a limited amount of time because there's so much airspace and so much data that needs to be in there, and it's kept for safety reasons, but they can't keep it forever. So the fact is that he saw this, went in, found it, and listened to it, and then published it is a great service towards ufology. And so I do want to give him props for that. And let's just play this 3-minute and 54-second video and see what we hear. Did you hear that? I just want to check. Chris, could you hear that? When I hit play?
No.
Couldn't hear that? Still can't hear that?
Nope.
Well, I'm sorry, folks. I guess we can't listen to it live. So I'll just put it in the comments here. I think with StreamYard, we have to actually pre-upload the video. It's like I might have forgotten about that. So sorry, folks. You'll have to click on the video to listen to it. So there is 3. There is closed captioning. There is a transcript as well. And these are interesting because like the pilots aren't able to determine what it is. Sorry, I just zoomed in here on my screen. But it could be anything. It could be balloons. It could be all these other things. But the pilots can't tell from where they are and they're reporting it. So there is a risk factor where we might imply a certain thought where it could be extraterrestrials and aliens, which is the one thing I really don't like about the journalism because it's clickbait. And I kind of worked through this stuff this week too, discovering all the facts and things that really existed, and I'll kind of explain this in the timeline. But Chris.
Ouch.
Sorry, pal.
Ouch.
I had Logan on my brain. I'll mention why in a minute. But
Okay.
When you read the stuff in the news and anything, like how far fetched from the truth is it from you? From what's going on?
I don't watch or read the news anymore. But I think it's just way out there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to trust it, eh? So to finish the thought on that, and the documented evented timeline. Okay, if you guys go to our website and check that out, I started inputting the series of events from the NORAD stuff that's been happening the last few weeks or so. So Logan helped me transcribe some documents over the weekend last week. That's why I was going to say it again.
Yeah.
And I've added them to the timeline. So I still have a few things to add, but for those of you that are following the news, let's just kind of walk through the pattern here. So January 30th, 2 white lights moving in a circular pattern on Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. So there's audio there. Then February 2nd, so 3 days later, NORAD made a statement on a high altitude surveillance balloon. So it might be possible that these lights moving around in a circular pattern were this balloon.
Could have been.
We don't know. We don't have enough information yet, but both events appear to be unidentified. Then 2 days later, NORAD, so was that the people of the Republic of China's high altitude surveillance balloon was brought down. Then we have 6 days later, NORAD took down a high-altitude airborne object. 1 day later, NORAD detected a radar anomaly and sent fighter aircraft to investigate. Same day, U.S. jet shoots down flying object over Canada. Following day, high-altitude object was detected in U.S. airspace over Lake Huron. U.S. takes it down. Following day, 2 or 3 very strange lights in the sky high above the flight paths of Sherbrooke, Quebec, which is what that audio file is, which is something separate but reported by civilian pilots.
Right.
Could be the same balloon thing. Who knows? Because this is civilian craft versus civilian. We have a combination of civilian pilot reports, military pilot reports, and civilian like on the ground reports.
Right.
So, when I input this, so for your understanding, Chris, when we input this to this timeline, the whole idea is to find some patterns, because the people on the ground aren't as experienced as the people in the air, and the people in the air aren't as experienced as the people in the army in the air, because they're also flying at different heights. There's several heights in which for air traffic. So the idea here is, once I map all these things that have actual evidence, is we start to see a pattern, because the constant is that people are observing, but they don't know what it is. They just know it's not something that looks familiar to them. Meanwhile, they have this thought or this idea that it's UFOs, and that UFO means aliens, and that means war, and that means fear. And that's kind of on point to like what we talked about tonight.
Yes.
And the whole world is in that thought. And when they put that out in media, because it's something because they had to shoot something down, they had to explain it. And then now we learn that it's a balloon and stuff, and there's a lot of people who just think they're lying about it. But what if it's just a balloon like they said it was?
Yeah.
So moving on, February 14th, 2 days later, which would be, still 2 days after they shot down that object, NORAD conducts a routine intercept of Russian aircraft entering air defense identification zone. So the reason why that got added to the database is if it's routine, then it's routine. But they felt the need to notify the public that this routine that they were doing wasn't associated with these Chinese balloons or whatever else was going on. So they didn't want to create confusion. But then by mentioning it, it sets up the opportunity where we're going to ask questions. Maybe it was associated with that, and that's not what you're telling us. But The problem with that is that's us judging and us not trusting the government, which is a very hard thing to do.
Yes.
If we could trust that they're telling the truth in the moment, this is what this timeline is supposed to help with, right? So then the CAF general next day. So the Canadian Armed Forces General Wayne Erie suspects Yukon object is a balloon. So and that's the Yukon, because there was 4 objects. The NORAD air defense exercise was over water, so they did another one. And then NORAD air defense exercise off the coast of British Columbia and Washington State. And then on February 17th, 2 days after that, NORAD U.S. Northern Command recovery operations update on the airborne objects, which is basically them saying that they're calling off the recovery of that. Now, I still have some facts to add to this. I'm still going to add when Trudeau spoke, when Biden spoke, just to kind of get a timeline of how fast all these things happen. And the reason why I'm putting this in the historical timeline is because this is an event that will remain in history. And while I'm looking in the past, looking for patterns, I now have a present time pattern of how the government has to respond in the new age when something like this enters our airspace. And then I can go back and look at previous reports from the Canadian government on UFOs and determine if the pattern's the same, and then try to hypothesize what exactly is going on. And the other way you can look at this information is if you go to the visual evidence database. Chris, I'll be getting you to help me input this stuff one day. So
one day soon.
But now we start to see where these things kind of are taking place since it's been added.
That's what you showed me the other day.
Yeah, so now that I've added these plot points, we can kind of visually see
where they're taking place.
Yeah, where they're taking place. So in Alaska up here, these two places up north of Alaska, what do we got here? This is where those the recovery of the object took place from NORAD. This is where NORAD took down the high altitude balloon in that area as well. And then the Russian practice that had nothing to do with that just so coincidentally happens to be over here. So when you look at evidence different ways, when you read it on the news, that's one version of it. But the beginning of the statement is the facts. Everything else is opinion. And then everyone else is opinion on opinion on opinion. But the whole point of this exercise for me is to narrow down where the facts are. So that way we can actually see and try to trust that information, because that's the statement they released. If the government is lying to us, because they released this information to the public, if this is what we need to prove that isn't true. Because if we can't prove what they don't say isn't true, because they didn't say it, but if they say something is true and we have evidence to contradict that what they say isn't true, then we have a stable argument to bring to our government. But we still have to look at what they said face value. So if they say that it's a balloon, it is a balloon until we're able to prove
that it's not a balloon.
It's not a balloon, but that doesn't mean that this balloon
was that balloon.
Was the explanation for all the other balloons. You get it. You totally get it. And but measuring it this way makes me curious. It's odd that it is that close, but they're also looking at the time frame. There's been some days in between. So is it possible that what they're saying is true? Very likely, based on once all the facts are added to this. How does this help ufology? Well, for those of you that go all crazy and off the deep end with these theories and ideas on shit that you can't prove, you come back and look at the facts, and you end up in a very depressive state like I am these days, realizing that I wasted a lot of time chasing the government to only discover that maybe they were freaking balloons. But you experiencers, I don't know if there's any comments in the chat. You just let me know if there is. But
there's not.
So they're just listening. Then active listeners. From the experiencer perspective, where this is important to me is when you guys see crafts and you guys see entities with the crafts, depending on where you're seeing them and what you're understanding, this consciousness is what I really need to dive into, because you may be seeing it in other dimensions. And what I'm hoping for at some point is to have some evidence through the experiencers to maybe suggest that what's going on these ends are the same thing. It's just this is in the three-dimensional world. So you got to measure it all at the same time. But at the same, also on top of that, it allows me to suggest that the thing that's going on with the government has nothing to do with this other problem. And we need to dial in and focus in on why you as an experiencer are seeing these crafts face to face. You're able to touch them. You're able to enter them. We're not getting, I don't think the government's going to be as easy to allow those things to happen. And if they do happen, then I don't think the government's involved, but they still could be. And by eliminating the possibilities of that being threatening and coming up with these new theories and hypotheses, allows me to focus the same amount of energy on the experiencers, because there's still something happening to the experiencers. And if the government isn't aware of these interdimensional beings that is somehow possessing our minds or visiting us in our sleep, then we need stronger evidence to present it to them so they actually do something about it.
Yeah, Lisa had a good point here. Some people say they didn't find the balloons after they were shot down.
Yeah, so there's still some evidence. Good point, Lisa, that I haven't entered in yet because I've still got to review it. It's been reported that the climate conditions are just too severe and too much time has passed that the efforts are wasted in order to recover it. And that's a similar thought pattern for investigations, murder investigations or kidnapping. Like the first 48 hours is not just a TV show. Like that's a legitimate thing. You know, you gotta get in there fast and you gotta recover it and do whatever you can while you can. But it costs money. You got to pay these people to search around and look, and there's got to be leads to follow, and there's got to be something significant of it. But what we don't have as the public is all the information that they got from their intelligence community, which they can't share because we don't want that in media, because we don't want Russia to know about it, right? Which is fair. And that combination of what they've discovered, a combination of the sequence of events, it's likely that they don't need to recover it because they have a high probability of it being a balloon, and it's non-threatening because they destroyed it when they shot it down.
What gets me, it's like, why did Americans have to come into Canadian territory?
Okay, well, that's a good question.
Why didn't we shoot it down, not them?
Wow. Okay, those are two questions. First of all, let's focus on the Alaskan one. Alaska belongs to USA.
Yes.
So I don't know what you know, how much you know about that. But
I don't.
Let me see here. I think I can change the map here. Yeah, perfect. So I put the labels up here.
All right.
There's Alaska. All right. So all this stuff is happening in the United States. This Yukon one is in Canada. But what had happened is they were tracking it, and then it went into our airspace. So they had to notify our government that they are tracking something and they need to come into our airspace in order to take it down. Permission was given by our prime minister to allow them to cross the border, to decommission this threat that was assessed. So being the prime minister, learning that information, what was he going to say? No, right? Go ahead, take it down safely. Don't hurt us, right? And thank you. And then it's done because they tracked it. They did the work for partners and allies and all that other stuff. Those are things we can trust. We should trust anyways. Why didn't we shoot it down? Well, what has come to light is that Canada's radar systems need to be upgraded, and Canada does not have, I believe from what I've read, Canada does not have the actual aircraft and missiles to be able to do that, which is a question of its own.
Why don't we?
Well, it's just I'm not a war guy. That's a question for I may have served, but I don't study the history and all these other things. But the main point is we rely on the States for a lot of our weapons, and we just simply don't have our own, and maybe we're not funding it. I really don't have an answer for that. I really don't know why. Maybe someone else who's more an expert into the history of military efforts as to why we don't have the technology. Maybe we don't have the money. All those are speculations. The point is we don't have it. So knowing that we didn't have it, should be grateful that those who did have it came over and they saved us too. Yes, it's a balloon. Yes, it's nothing too severe. But what if it was a UFO? What if it was Russia? What if it was an actual threat? This being carried out and having to explain it, like I'm happy with that because they did something. They saved us. No one got hurt. That's, and how many times does this happen that we don't know about it? So that's one of those reasons too. The Lake Huron one, similar situation. So I'll explain that. So there was one in Lake Michigan. So that's over there too. And Lake Huron here. So same idea. This line here, Chris, that is the border between the United States and Canada right there.
Okay.
So same idea. It was being tracked across the states. My mouse is screwing me right here. Being across the states, and then in order to continue tracking it down close to Manitoula Island, Tobermory is right there in the corner. If my mouse is being silly, come on, mouse, let's go. My mouse is fucking weird. You can't do anything with this mouse. I can't even. What's going on here?
You're ready to throw it.
You can tell, eh?
Yes, I can.
Have that look. Yeah, I don't like this. I got no mouse, so I can't move. Okay, there we go. Maybe I have to charge my battery.
Probably do.
Same idea. Had to cross the border there, and I'm glad that they do. Now, people are shitting on Trudeau, shooting on Biden, and all these other things because they're mad at all the other things that they may have done that hasn't been fair. Okay, I'm not trying to preach politics here. You pick your side, pick your belief, pick whatever you need to do. But regardless of who was in charge, if you look at the situation, I believe the right choice was made and it was handled properly under any circumstances. And it's not aliens. And if it was aliens, they got them. They fucking shot them down. They got the aliens. We're saved, hypothetically speaking. But majority of these experiences that are happening with our experiencers appear to have some sort of interdimensional reach, which is an entirely different level of approach. And I've been doing some reflecting, and I have been doing some review on the work and the efforts that I've been putting in. And as much as I appreciate this exposure of this balloon stuff, it's really brought to light the possibility of all these other things that we've been seeing in the news are the same thing. The Tic Tac video could have been a giant blimp for all it's still a fucking balloon. I don't know if you know what the Tic Tac video is, Chris.
No, I don't.
So mainstream media, the original videos that the Pentagon released, if you watch the news.
I don't watch the news.
Yeah, you don't watch the news, you don't know, and then you're fine. You're special. I envy you. The fact that you don't know is a beautiful thing. But for those of you listening that are in the know, that you Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon kind of scenario with To the Stars Academy, that very well could be balloons. And here's something that you guys might like. For those of you that remember that I was tracking Elizondo and I was proving that he was lying about a whole bunch of things and how he exposed all that before he left Twitter. He has now come forward after that to say that these balloons that we're noticing was what he was trying to warn us about this whole time, which is fucking bananas because he's been telling everybody that it's aliens and extraterrestrials and all these other things. But meanwhile, now that it's come to light, he's saying that was the warning. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, well, that's what Twitter's for. That's where you get the news. But anyways.
Yeah, Lisa said a good point here. Not everything unidentified is alien.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you, Lisa. Yeah, that's true. And UFO doesn't mean aliens. And UFO doesn't mean this is what we call it because we don't know what it is. But do the governments call it UFOs? The government probably don't because they probably call it F-16 number X57, whatever the name of their stupid aircrafts are called because they know what it is. It's only unidentified to us because we don't know and they don't tell us. And there's a lot going on up there. Biden did say that there's a lot of weather stuff going up in the high altitudes that, that we don't know about, that we should know about, and all these other things too. And when we're on the ground and we're seeing things, and the majority of us aren't trained pilots, we're making these assumptions based on what we know and what we believe. But just because you don't know what it is doesn't mean it's aliens. When we say it's aliens is when it lands right in front of you and you see the aliens come out. And there are experiencers that report that. There are experiencers that have gone through these experiences, and these things are happening. Whether that's mental, and by mental I mean in their mind, like a psychogenic activity, because there's what do you call it? Telekinesis, or not telekinesis, telepathy, telepathic communication. There it is. So there's that phenomenon. I think is entirely separate, and it might be possible that this UFO circuit could be a distraction to keep us, because it's something we can, actively focus on, because for the science community, it's something that can be measured. This interdimensional psychogenic visitation coming from other dimensions or other places on this world using our consciousness, that can't really be proven, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But we still need to measure the things in the real world as well as the metaphysical world separately, but also simultaneously. Because I'm also adding to that timeline. I don't want to jinx my mouse again. Yeah, my mouse is still fucked. So I might have to get you to end the show. But I might be able to trail a little bit over. No, I don't know. I got to charge it. I'm going to charge it right now.
Yeah.
So what was I going to say? So while I'm adding the UFO stuff that comes from mainstream media, I'm also going to be adding experiencer reports as well. And then we're going to start to see a pattern, because maybe the same day that the government reported about something, someone in the same location saw it, didn't check the news like Chris, and believed it to be UFOs, and because they had an experience and all that other stuff. So we're going to kind of get more fine-tuned data as to what's really going on. So far, I'm convinced that this UFO stuff on TV is something we don't need to worry about. But I don't know enough to know if it isn't true. So I still have that what if. But I'm going to spend more time focusing on the experiencers and diving into those cases. And I think I'm going to maybe step back a little bit from engaging with the Twidiots, is what I call them, the guys on Twitter, and whatnot. Lisa says, I never trusted Lou. Yeah, Lou really fucked himself, to be honest. He got caught in so many lies. And even if he is telling the truth now, it's going to be hard. But he also could be right. Chris, you probably don't even know who he is.
Nope.
Yeah, which is fine. You don't need to know, right? So Lisa says, why is the government not mentioning us experiencers? Sounds kind of strange, don't you think? Well, there's a lot, there's a lot going there. So I'm sure the government recognizes us like individuals. The government also recognizes that there is an intense need to increase mental health support in general. I am not saying that mental health is the poor mental health is the explanation for all of these cases that are happening with experiencers. It could be an explanation for majority, but it may not actually be something entirely. And I work through my investigations with the experiencers quite delicately to determine whether or not which way we're kind of going. So if majority of it is that way, then maybe that way, then they'll have this belief of probability. So if it's probably mental health, then they're already working on mental health. If that's what they believe, because we don't know what they know, and we don't know what they believe because they don't tell us that. But if they're not focusing on it, let's kind of explain it this way, because I'm also trying to understand why you guys are experiencing this stuff, and not saying what your experience isn't real. Is just trying to understand where the experience is coming from. If it's not coming from this physical world, then I need to learn how to get to the world that you guys are able to see. I can't get, and that's where I'm trying to learn how to meditate and different things like that, so I can have my own experience and be like, wow, I totally get where you're coming from, and that becomes part of my work. But I haven't been able to do that yet, or I haven't had that opportunity. But just because I haven't had that opportunity doesn't mean I don't believe what you're experiencing is real. I'm not comfortable enough to believe that what you think is happening is actually what's happening. Does that make sense? So if the government is not concerned about it, then we don't have to worry about it until we need to worry about it. But that's easier said than done for those who are living with it every day. So Lisa, using you as an example, you have multiple visitations and it happens on a continual basis. And what I'm saying probably, it does not apply to you because you have a lot of experiences that are going on. to actually understand why you are having those experiences, I'm nowhere close to understanding that. All I know is that you're not the only one, and there are many other people that are experiencing the same thing, and you and those people have something in common, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, what's in common between you and all the other people that have the same thing. Are we all mentally ill? We all could be, but does that mental illness actually hinder or prevent us from doing these spiritual things? Right? There are many of us who have physical challenges as well, and that are capable of doing the same things that
Yep.
can do. Right, Chris? You can relate to that, of course.
Yes, I can.
But like it's in the, and I've been more open about my mental health lately because it's part of my journey, and that's I with the Army and everything I got into, I got a little programmed a little bit, let's just say, and I'm trying to deprogram. But it's fears that I have, being completely open here, and knowing that I'm live and this is pre-recorded or recorded, so I'm going to be honest and accurate here. It's challenging. Maybe I'm not allowed to say it. My mind just got wiped. Oh, perfect timing. What was I going to say, man? Fuck. I get this overwhelmed feeling sometimes, and my brain just freaking wipes. I don't know. Where was I going? It doesn't matter. It's not important. That's where I was going with that, is the fear of not being taken serious because you're identifying you being part of something that normally prevents people from doing the other things. And that's a social norm and things like that too. And then that's negative talk and things like that. Of course, everybody has to work through. But I recently started to think that maybe by showing you guys that I'm normal too, and still able to live a professional life and still able to be, a little crazy sometimes and still focus on the facts, that if I can knock it out of the park with facts and evidence while being a little crazy, then you guys can do it too. It's tough. And I'm like you guys too. I'm an experiencer as well. And I don't know, I've never experienced a UFO or a ghost. Well, maybe a ghost. If it was a ghost, I don't know what it is, but some paranormal activity.
I have.
When you want to share, we'll share. But I've had a mental, like a psychogenic experience. We say a mental experience, but like a psychogenic experience. And it very well could have been caused by trauma at a time that in my life. And that's what my higher self gave me, is this map that created the Experience Through Support Association, and good things came out of it. And I could have been working through trauma, not knowing about it. But there's no way in hell that I could have known that map was going to educate me on how to understand all 10 dimensions. And there's no way that I was going to know that this map one day was going to help me understand that it's possible that this Earth has several dimensions we're not just talking a single plane of flat Earth, Chris. We're talking 4 different concentric circles. It's just the globe thing is just